The outcome of the meeting, I can say, is threefold. Number one, we were able to create a platform for cross-fertilization, cross-regional fertilization, because of the magnificent expertise that have been brought together. Sharing of experience, success story when it comes to addressing food security, energy transition for sustainable development in our region. We have really done so through different angles, and I think that is the critical way we can say we've shared our experience and we cross-fertilize. We engage with each other because we have very similar issues. So in a very seamless way, we've addressed that one in a very substantive way. Number two, really we actually come up with new grounds to address the issue in a very system-thinking manner, because it's a holistic process. There are different kinds of challenges that come together when it comes to finance, when it comes to fertilizer, when it comes to understanding what do we have in the sub-region, the two sub-regions, and to what extent we can use the framework we have to unlock and harness our potential. That's number two. Number three, I think it's extremely important to bring to bear. Addressing food security and energy is actually, it brings together many other issues. So right now we are in a very difficult global economic landscape. So being able to address those issues that are not really directly linked to those two crises, but indirectly, i.e. the debt distress. To what extent we can come up as two regions, two officials from the different regions and experts to be able to address those issues in a very sustainable way. All in all, those are the three ones. What I like within this is that we address them in a very substantive way, in a very forward-looking way, moving away from the symptomatic solution to touching to those root causes I have already, and of the issues I have already highlighted. But I leave the floor to my colleague, Zuzana.
Okay, so I would only add to what Ngone already said that this is our second joint meeting between North Africa and West Africa sub-regional offices of ECA. We actually are building on a similar theme from last year, where we also looked into food and energy security. And what we kind of observe when we look around these themes, they are always very high on agenda when the food prices are high and when energy prices are high, and then they tend to go off radar. So actually, purpose of this meeting is to keep it very high on policy agenda and address it in sustainable way, and also focus on the supply side, which means either sustainable agricultural production, as we emphasized during the meeting, and also inter-regional trade, including AFCFTA. So not only temporary demand-side solutions, but especially how to basically turn Africa into food sufficiency, sovereignty.
So specifically, were there anything agreement that were reached on the ways of turning Africa to food, how do you call it, to be food secured food?
So I think the new opportunity is the AFCFTA, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, and how the sub-regions can build on each other complementarities, because they are different and they have different strengths and also different needs. As was said actually by the chair at the end of the meeting, we will now compile the best practices from both sub-regions. I mean, West Africa can share, for example, grain reserves, regional approaches. North Africa also has practices to share that are very good, and then using digital technology, etc. And then we will look forward what can be implementable, and we are also planning some joint actions and joint programs, not only meetings going forward.
So talking of food security, in the context of the political security that we have within the sub-region, looking at North Africa and West Africa, how was there a discussion with regards to how to deal with food security in that context of political instability?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think actually it was the political instability, not necessarily in our sub-regions, but of course that also contributes, but the Russia-Ukraine crisis was one of the triggers that actually led to increase in prices. So looking at security situation will be also very important, holistic approach, and this is actually one area that we are considering looking forward, looking at peace, stability, development, and of course food security is a very important component. But I think Ngone My colleague Ngone has some thoughts on this.
I think that question is very critical because if you take West Africa right now, we have 2.1 million of internal displaced people. Those are agriculture people. Those are people who are very key actors of agriculture productivity in the region. But they are also key actors to addressing food security. Unfortunately, because of insecurity, they left completely their home, their farms, and so on to go to under the camps. It does have costs on agriculture productivity, costs on revenue, costs also on food security. And that's why it's a critical dimension. We're trying to address it from two angles. Number one, if also political angle, meaning the political economy, which is to really have this, what we call the nexus between peace, humanitarian, and development. How do we make sure that the insight into the study, the understanding conflict costs on agriculture, cost conflict on development and structural transformation has actually addressed and informed policy making.